The text came in at 7:30, right when I was stepping out of the car. Something came up at the office. You'll manage fine without me. D. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Manage fine. That was his go-to phrase whenever he bailed. Work function. School play. Emma's birthday didn't matter. He always managed to be somewhere else, managing someone else's crisis, while leaving me to manage the fallout. I didn't bother replying. I slipped the phone into my clutch, straightened the neckline of my navy silk gown, and walked into the Grand Metropolitan's ballroom like I owned the place. In my world, showing weakness was like bleeding in shark-infested waters, and everyone here was a shark. The Children's Hope Foundation Gala was the kind of event Daniel loved to claim as a priority. High-profile donors, local news cameras, plenty of opportunity to look like a philanthropic saint while networking for his VC firm. The fact that he'd skipped it wasn't a surprise. What was surprising was how little it bothered me anymore. Maybe because I'd spent the last 3 months quietly preparing for exactly this moment. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and nodded at Judge Ellison, who was holding court near the auction tables. She gave me a tight smile, professional, but distant. In family court, you learn not to pick sides too, obviously, especially when one of those sides was currently dodging subpoenas. Claire, came a voice I recognized instantly. Brave face tonight. I turned. Sienna Blake stood there in a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair styled in intentional waves. Her lips painted a shade of red that screamed, "Look at me." She held a glass of white wine and leaned against a pillar like she'd rehearsed the pose in front of a mirror. "You came alone?" she asked, tilting her head. Or did Daniel finally decide to stop pretending? "I'm managing fine," I said evenly, echoing his text. "You, on the other hand, seem to be managing a lot of free time if you're here without a +1. Her smile twitched. "Oh, Daniel's around. Just busy. Unlike some people, he doesn't need to show up to every event to prove he cares." "Right," I said. "He proves it by sending checks and dodging depositions." A few people nearby glanced our way. Sienna noticed. She stepped closer, lowering her voice but keeping it loud enough for the cluster of donors behind her to catch the edges. "You know," she said, swirling her wine, "Emma's lucky she has you. Shame she doesn't have a father to guide her, not that Daniel's ever really been one." There it was, the line I'd been waiting for, the one I'd known she'd cross eventually. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of champagne, set the glass down on a nearby tray, and met her eyes. "Funny you'd say that tonight, Sienna." Her brow arched. "Why is that?" "Because I've been sitting on something for a while now. Thought tonight might be the right time to share it." She laughed, but it came out thin. "Share what? Another one of your lawyerly threats." "No," I said. "Something better. Let's talk after dessert." I walked away before she could respond, feeling the weight of several stares on my back. Let them wonder. Let her stew. I had plans for after dessert, and none of them involved playing nice. Dinner was a blur of small talk and polite laughter. I sat at table 7 with a mix of hospital board members and a state senator who kept trying to steer the conversation toward the importance of family values. I smiled through it, nodding at the right moments, but my mind was elsewhere, on the envelope Marcus had promised to deliver tomorrow morning, on the numbers inside it, on the moment I'd finally stopped letting Daniel and Sienna dictate the narrative. When dessert arrived, some elaborate chocolate mousse concoction, I pushed mine aside and checked my phone under the table. Still nothing from Daniel. Typical. He'd probably texted Sienna instead, warning her to back off. Or maybe he was too busy managing whatever crisis he'd invented this time. Sienna didn't approach me again until the coffee was being poured. She slid into the empty seat beside me, her perfume cloying. "You're enjoying this," she said quietly. "Aren't you?" "Enjoying what?" "The attention, the mystery, acting like you've got some big secret. I turned to her, keeping my voice low. It's not an act, Sienna. It's a fact. And facts don't care about your feelings. She leaned in, her tone sharpening. You think you're so clever, but everyone here knows the truth. Daniel's the one building something real. You're just clinging to a marriage that's been over for years. Real, I repeated. You mean real like the texts I saw last month? Real like the credit card charges at the Ritz-Carlton when he claimed he was in Boston? Her expression flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. She hadn't known about the Ritz. Good. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, recovering quickly. Sure you do, I said, but that's not the point. The point is, you made a comment earlier about Emma not having a father. I'd be careful with statements like that, Sienna, because once certain truths come out, they don't go back in. She opened her mouth to reply, but the MC tapped the microphone, launching into the closing remarks. I used the distraction to stand, smoothing my gown. Enjoy the rest of your evening, I said, and try not to trip on your way out. Wouldn't want to ruin the dress. I walked toward the exit, aware of the eyes tracking me. Outside, the air was crisp, the kind of late autumn chill that cleared your head. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to Marcus. I need those results tomorrow morning. Not a minute later. He replied almost immediately. They're ready. I'll drop them at your office at 8. I pocketed the phone and waited for my car. Behind me, the ballroom's golden light spilled onto the pavement, muffled music drifting out whenever the doors opened. Somewhere inside, Sienna was probably already spinning the night's events, crafting her version of what had happened. Let her. By this time tomorrow, her version wouldn't matter. Mine would. The car pulled up, and I slid into the back seat. As we drove away, I thought about Emma, about the way she'd looked at me that morning, tying her shoes, oblivious to the war being waged around her. I thought about the lie I'd lived for years, the one I'd told myself to keep the peace. No more. Tomorrow, the peace would break, and I'd be the one standing in the wreckage, holding the truth. I stared out the window at the city lights, my reflection ghosting over them. Somewhere out there, Daniel was probably still managing. Sienna was probably still performing, and I was done managing their mess. Tomorrow, the silence ended. 8 a.m. Marcus was already in my office when I walked in, dropping a manila envelope on my desk like it weighed nothing. He didn't sit. He knew better than to waste my time with pleasantries. Lab's clean, he said. Chain of custody locked. 2 independent samples. Same result. You open it here or somewhere private. Here, I said, sliding my briefcase onto the floor. I didn't need privacy. I needed confirmation. I tore the flap, pulled out the report, and scanned the first page. Numbers, percentages, genetic markers. Then I saw the line that mattered. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it twice. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. It was exactly what I'd suspected since Emma's 3rd birthday, when Daniel had refused to take her for a follow-up blood draw, claiming it was unnecessary. You want copies? Marcus asked. 3 sets. 1 for me, 1 for Olivia, 1 for the mediator. Seal the originals in the vault. Done. He hesitated. You sure you want to drop this now? Mediation's today. If you blindside him, he'll lawyer up harder than before. He's already lawyered up. I said, this just changes the game. Marcus nodded and left. I buzzed my assistant. Hold all calls until 10. And tell Olivia I need her in here in 5 minutes. Olivia Grant walked in with 2 coffees and 0 patience. You look like you haven't slept, which means you've either closed a deal or you're about to start a war. Which is it? Both, I said, sliding the report across the desk. She picked it up, scanned it, and let out a low whistle. Holy shit, Daniel's not the father. Never was. And you're just telling me now? Because now I have proof. And because today's mediation is the perfect place to use it. Olivia leaned back, sipping her coffee. Okay, walk me through the play. Because if you drop this in that room, Daniel's going to lose his mind, Sienna's going to lose hers, and the mediator's going to want to raise. Good, I said. Let them squirm. Here's how it goes. Daniel comes in acting like the reasonable one, pushing for 50-50 custody. His lawyer will talk about stability, continuity, Emma's best interests. I let them talk. I let them build their whole argument on the assumption that Daniel is her father. Then, right before we break, I slide this across the table and watch them choke. Olivia finished. But Claire, custody battles aren't just about DNA. The court cares about de facto parenthood, emotional bonds, which is why I'm not leading with this. I cut in. I'm leading with Daniel's absence, his missed visitations, his refusal to pay for Emma's tutoring. Then I pivot. I ask him, directly, in front of everyone, if he stands by his claim of paternity. When he says yes, and he will, I show him the report. Olivia was quiet for a beat. You're not just ending his parental rights. You're humiliating him. He humiliated me for 6 years. I said, he humiliated Emma by pretending to be something he's not. Tonight, Sienna made it personal. Now it's my turn. Olivia set down her coffee. All right, I'll draft the motion to amend the petition. But you keep that report in your bag until the exact right moment. Don't even look at it during opening statements. Let them hang themselves. Deal. 10:30. Mediation was held in a nondescript conference room downtown. The kind of place with soundproof walls and ugly carpeting. Daniel was already there, sitting next to his attorney, Richard Hale. Sienna wasn't present. She wasn't a party to the case, but I knew she was waiting for updates. Probably parked outside in her Mercedes, refreshing her phone. Richard spoke first. Claire, Olivia, appreciate you both making time. We're hopeful we can reach an agreement today that serves Emma's best interests. Translation: we want to avoid a trial where Daniel's infidelity gets aired out. I nodded politely. Of course. Daniel leaned forward. All fake sincerity. I miss Emma. I want more time with her. Weekends, holidays, whatever it takes to rebuild our relationship. Our relationship. I thought, not Emma's. Yours and yours alone. Olivia jumped in. Rebuild? Daniel, you've missed 6 scheduled visitations in the last 4 months. You canceled Emma's piano lessons twice because you forgot. And last week, you told the nanny you were too busy to pick her up from school. That's not fair, Daniel said. Work is demanding, but I'm her father. That counts for something. It counts, I said evenly, but it's not everything. Richard cleared his throat. Let's focus on the proposal. Daniel is willing to accept primary physical custody remaining with Claire, provided he gets alternating weekends and half of all school breaks. He'll also cover extracurricular expenses. After taxes? I asked. Richard blinked. Excuse me? Expenses after taxes. Because Daniel's track record with financial transparency is spotty. Daniel's jaw tightened. I've paid every cent I owe, according to your own accounting. I said, not according to the courts. We went back and forth for 20 minutes. Standard posturing. Richard throwing around terms like stability and parental equity. Me pointing out Daniel's inconsistencies. Olivia taking notes, occasionally interjecting with a pointed question. Then Richard said something that made my fingers curl around the strap of my bag. Daniel has demonstrated, time and again, that he is Emma's legal and biological father, and that his commitment to her well-being is unwavering. I looked at Daniel. Is that your official stance? That you are Emma's biological father? He didn't hesitate. Of course I am. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. Good, I said, because I'd hate for you to perjure yourself today. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the table. I didn't slide it yet. I just let it sit there. Richard frowned. What is that? Evidence, I said. Specifically, a court-admissible DNA test conducted by an accredited lab. 2 independent samples. Same result. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You had me tested? I had Emma tested. I corrected. And you. The results are quite clear. I slid the report across the table. Daniel picked it up with a hand that wasn't quite steady. He read the first page, then the second. His face drained of color. Richard leaned over to look. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm. This is highly irregular. We need time to review. Review all you want. Olivia said. The lab's contact information is on page 3. Feel free to verify. Daniel's voice came out rough. This is bullshit. You set me up. I set up a test. I said, you're the one who failed it. Who's the father? Then, he demanded, some guy you fucked behind my back? Don't, I said sharply. Don't you dare drag Emma into your ego trip. The only person who lied in this marriage was you. About where you were. About who you were with. About what you were doing. And now, about whether you're her father. Richard was already whispering furiously to Daniel, but Daniel wasn't listening. He was staring at me like I'd just ripped the floor out from under him. You planned this, he said, from the start. This whole mediation, it's a setup. No, I said. The setup was you pretending to be a father for 6 years. I'm just ending the charade. Silence. Thick, heavy, absolute. Even Richard stopped talking. I stood, gathering my things. Olivia will file the amended petition by noon. Expect a motion to terminate parental rights on Monday. And Daniel, if you ever refer to Emma as yours again, I'll make sure the court hears exactly how often you've actually shown up for her. Understood? He didn't answer. He couldn't. I walked out, Olivia beside me, down the hallway, past the elevators, out into the gray afternoon. Neither of us spoke until we hit the sidewalk. Well, Olivia said finally, that's one way to skip small talk. He'll try to fight it. I said, he'll lose, especially once we bring in the text records, the hotel receipts, the witness statements from the nanny. Claire, you just nuked his entire position. Good, I said. Let him burn. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're a cold bitch, but I guess I deserve that. I deleted it without replying. 1 down. 1 to go. The leak hit Wednesday. Not from my office. Marcus traced the IP to a burner account linked to Sienna's cousin in Jersey. By 9 a.m., page 6 had a blurb. By 10, it was on every mommy blog from the Uptown Collective to Suburban Scandal. VC Scion, not the father? Donovan custody battle takes shocking turn. I didn't return the first 3 calls from reporters. The 4th was from a producer at Inside Edition. I picked up. Claire, this is Dana Reese. We'd love to get your side. No comment, I said, and hung up. Olivia called 5 minutes later. You see the feeds? I saw. Daniel's lawyer is screaming illegal disclosure. They're filing a motion to gag the court. Let them, I said. The report's already public. Gag orders don't erase screenshots. True, but Sienna's talking. She's telling people you fabricated the test to steal Emma's inheritance. Emma doesn't have an inheritance, I said. Daniel blew most of his trust fund on startups that folded. All she has is what I've built. Doesn't matter. Narrative matters. And right now, Sienna's painting you as the villain. She can paint whatever she wants. I said, I've got the receipts. Friday was Emma's school fundraiser at the Dalton Academy Gymnasium. I'd considered skipping, but backing down would look like guilt. So I showed up in a charcoal blazer and boots. Emma's hand in mine. She was wearing the dress we'd picked out together, navy with white polka dots. She looked up at me, swinging our arms. Mommy, is Daddy coming? Not today, baby. Because of the picture online? I stopped walking. You saw that? Lucy's mom showed her phone. It said you and Daddy aren't the same family anymore. I crouched to her eye level. Emma, listen to me. Families aren't just about who shares your blood. They're about who shows up, who loves you. I'm your family. Nana and Papa are your family. And no piece of paper changes that. Okay. She nodded slowly. Okay. We walked into the gym. The chatter dipped for half a beat, then resumed louder, sharper. I kept my chin up, steering Emma toward the art display where her painting was framed. Halfway there, Sienna appeared, blocking our path. She wasn't in athleisure like the other moms. She was in a cream-wrapped dress and heels, her hair perfectly blown out. She smiled at Emma first. Hi, sweetie. Your painting is beautiful. Emma ducked behind my leg. Sienna's smile didn't waver as she shifted her gaze to me. Brave of you to come, she said softly, for my ears only, after what you pulled in mediation. Brave of you to show your face after your cousin leaked privileged information. I replied, How's that defamation suit looking? Her jaw tightened. You ruined him. Claire, do you even care about Emma? Dragging her through this? I care about her knowing the truth. I said, something you've never understood. And while we're on the subject, how's Daniel handling the news that he's not a father? Must be tough. Realizing your entire identity was a lie. You're a spiteful bitch. She hissed. And your footnote. I said, Move. Sienna, you're blocking my daughter's artwork. She stepped aside, but her voice followed us. This isn't over. It is for today, I said without turning. I spent the next hour fielding tight smiles and careful questions. How are you holding up? Such a difficult time. Emma seems resilient. I answered in monosyllables, keeping Emma close. When the silent auction ended, I collected our items and headed for the exit. That's when I heard it, raised voices near the coat check. Daniel and Sienna should have told me she was getting tested. Daniel's voice, raw. How was I supposed to know? You barely answer my texts. Because I've been cleaning up your messes. The blogs. The comments. Do you know what this is doing to my reputation? Your reputation? What about mine? I'm the one they're calling a homewrecker. Daniel. And now I look like an idiot because you weren't even the father. I rounded the corner. They were half hidden behind a rack of coats. Daniel gripping Sienna's arm. He saw me and dropped his hand. Claire, he said, voice cracking. You did this. I did nothing except stop lying. I said, you two did the rest. Sienna's eyes were red. You're enjoying this. Standing there like you're above it all. I'm not above it. I said, I'm just done being beneath it. Move along. Sienna, your audience is waiting. She opened her mouth, but Daniel cut her off. Leave us alone. Sienna. She hesitated, then stalked off. Daniel leaned against the wall, rubbing his face. For a second, he looked younger, smaller. Then he straightened. Why now? Claire? Why destroy us like this? Us? I repeated. There is no us. There hasn't been for years. And I didn't destroy anything. I revealed what was already broken. You could have told me privately, given me a chance to what? Lie again? Spin it? Pay me off? Daniel, you had 6 years of chances. You chose Sienna. You chose your ego. You chose every missed birthday and forgotten pickup. Don't stand here and act like I stole your dignity. You threw it away. He stared at the floor. Emma's going to hate me. She won't hate you. I said, she'll just stop wondering why you never came. And that's worse, isn't it? Being forgotten by the person you pretended to be. He didn't reply. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. I loved her, Claire, in my own way. I looked back. Love isn't a feeling. Daniel, it's a verb. And you never showed up for the job. I walked out, Emma's hand in mine. The cool air hit my face as we reached the sidewalk. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. Motion filed. Judge Ellison fast-tracked it. Hearing Monday. Also, Sienna's PR team is spinning it as mutual separation due to irreconcilable differences. Want me to leak the hotel receipts? I typed back, not yet. Let them hang themselves. Monday will be loud enough. Emma tugged my hand. Mommy? Are we going home now? Yes. Baby. Can we make pancakes? Absolutely. As we drove, I watched the city blur past. The calls would come from Daniel, from Sienna, from reporters desperate for a quote. I'd ignore them. Monday was the finish line, and I intended to cross it with my head high. Daniel's reputation was collapsing. Sienna's credibility was ash. And me? I was done managing their mess. From now on, I'd be managing my own life and Emma's. And that was a job I'd never outsource again. Monday morning, Daniel showed up in a navy suit that cost more than most people's rent. Hair meticulously styled, expression carefully neutral. Sienna wasn't allowed in the courtroom. This was a closed hearing, but I knew she was camped outside, probably live tweeting to her followers about fighting for the truth. Olivia sat beside me, flipping through our exhibit binder like it was a casual read. Judge Ellison entered, and the room went still. She didn't bother with pleasantries. We're here on an emergency motion to modify custody and terminate parental rights based on newly discovered genetic evidence. Mr. Hale, you're representing Daniel Donovan? Richard Hale stood. Yes, Your Honor. And we'd like to renew our objection to the admission of the DNA report. The chain of custody is questionable, and the test was obtained without my client's knowledge or consent. Ms. Grant, Judge Ellison turned to Olivia. Your Honor, the sample was collected via court-approved buccal swab during a routine medical examination ordered by this court 6 months ago. The lab is accredited. The methodology is standard. And New York law does not require a parent's consent for paternity testing when legitimacy is at issue in a custody proceeding. Matter of baby boy C. Controls. Judge Ellison nodded. I've reviewed the filings. The report is admitted. Let's move to opening statements. Hale went first. Your Honor, this is a case about a mother who, upon discovering inconvenient truths, has chosen to weaponize her child rather than protect her. Ms. Donovan had this test conducted months ago and sat on it, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. Meanwhile, Daniel Donovan has been a constant, loving presence in Emma's life. To strip him of his rights now, based solely on a genetic technicality, would devastate a little girl who knows him as her father. I didn't react. I'd expected the devastation angle. It was weak, and Olivia knew it. She stood. Your Honor, this isn't about genetics. It's about fraud. For 6 years, Daniel Donovan allowed a child, a court, and this community to believe he was Emma's biological father. He accepted tax benefits, insurance coverage, and social capital based on that lie. He then used that perceived status to demand custody and control. The devastation Mr. Hale speaks of is a direct result of Mr. Donovan's own deception. We're not asking this court to erase Emma's memories. We're asking it to align legal reality with biological fact. Judge Ellison leaned back. Call your first witness. Ms. Grant. Olivia turned to me. Your Honor, the petitioner calls Claire Donovan to the stand. I stood, walked to the witness box, and was sworn in. Hale started with softballs, my employment, my relationship with Emma, my daily routine. I answered clearly, concisely. Then he pivoted. Ms. Donovan, you testified in your initial custody filing that Daniel Donovan was Emma's father, correct? I believed he was at the time. And when did that belief change? Approximately 18 months ago, when Emma's pediatrician noted certain genetic markers that didn't align with Daniel's reported family medical history. So you suspected, and instead of discussing it with your husband, you secretly obtained a DNA test. I discussed it with my attorney, and it wasn't secret, it was prudent. Daniel had already demonstrated a pattern of hostility toward medical disclosures regarding Emma. Pattern? You mean the time he objected to unnecessary allergy testing? I mean the time he refused to sign the release for her neurological screening, claiming it was overkill. Hale's smile was thin. And yet, despite these concerns, you waited months to disclose the DNA results. Why? Because I wanted to ensure the integrity of the evidence and assess the impact on Emma. I also needed to confirm Daniel's ongoing interest in her welfare. And what did you find? That his interest was contingent on maintaining the illusion of paternity. Once the test results were finalized, he doubled down on demanding custody, not because he wanted to parent, but because he wanted to win. Objection, Hale said. Speculation. Overruled. Judge Ellison said, Ms. Donovan, stick to facts. Fact. Daniel missed 12 of the last 20 scheduled visitations. Fact. He declined to contribute to Emma's tutoring costs, stating it was not in his budget. Fact. He referred to Emma as my daughter in legal filings while simultaneously contesting the need for her medical care. Hale switched tactics. You mentioned an affair, Ms. Donovan. Is it true that Emma is the product of a one-night encounter during a rough patch in your marriage? Olivia was on her feet. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, Hale said, if paternity is the issue, the circumstances surrounding conception are material. Judge Ellison sighed. I'll allow it, but tread carefully. Mr. Hale. I met his gaze. Yes, Emma was conceived during a brief separation. I disclosed that to Daniel at the time. He chose to stay in the marriage and raise her as his own. Chose. Hale repeated. So he's her legal father by estoppel, isn't he? He's acted as her father. He's acted when convenient. I said, legal fiction doesn't erase biological fact. Mr. Hale. And it certainly doesn't entitle someone to custody when they've actively undermined the child's stability. Hale circled the lectern. You expect this court to believe you didn't time this disclosure to coincide with the gala and the subsequent media firestorm? I expect this court to believe the DNA report, which is time-stamped and verified. The timing of public events is irrelevant to the validity of the science. Irrelevant? You called Sienna Blake a footnote at that fundraiser. You told her the truth would come out. That sounds like a threat. Ms. Donovan. It was a statement of fact. Sienna made a comment about Emma being fatherless. I informed her that the definition of fatherhood was about to change. Hardly a threat. Hale turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is a calculated campaign to destroy my client's reputation and sever his bond with his child. We ask the court to dismiss this motion and sanction Ms. Donovan for abuse of process. Olivia stood. Your Honor, Mr. Hale is confusing cause and effect. The reputational damage stems from his client's own lies, not from my client's decision to correct the record. As for sanctions, perhaps the court should consider sanctioning Mr. Hale for filing a custody petition based on fraudulent representations of paternity. Judge Ellison held up a hand. Enough, Ms. Donovan. You may step down. Mr. Hale, call your witness. He called Daniel. Daniel walked to the stand with the slow, deliberate gait of a man who knew the ground was unstable. He was sworn in, and Hale began gently. Daniel, how would you describe your relationship with Emma? She's my daughter, Daniel said, voice thick. I've raised her since she was born. I love her, supported her, been there for every milestone. Despite the DNA report? Despite it, biology isn't everything. I'm her dad in every way that matters. Olivia rose for cross-examination. Mr. Donovan, you've just stated you've been there for every milestone. Can you name Emma's current favorite book? Daniel blinked. The Princess in Black? She stopped reading that series 6 months ago. It's Zoe and Sassafras now. Next question. Who is her pediatrician? Doctor. Lynn. Dr. Alina Sharma. You've met her twice. Now, Mr. Donovan, when was the last time you attended one of Emma's school events? I missed the last one due to work. The last 3. Actually, including the art show where her painting won second place. You sent flowers the next day. Store-bought. No note. Why did you demand joint custody in your petition if your involvement has been so sporadic? Because I want to be more involved. I want 50-50 time. 50-50 time requires consistency, Mr. Donovan. And consistency requires showing up. You haven't. Now, let's discuss the DNA report. You told Ms. Donovan in mediation that you were Emma's biological father. Was that a lie? Daniel's face reddened. I believed it was true. Belief isn't fact. And when presented with evidence to the contrary, your first response was to accuse Ms. Donovan of fabrication. Why? Because she sprang it on me. In front of lawyers. How was I supposed to react? With honesty, Olivia said. Instead, you reacted with anger and deflection, just as you're doing now. No further questions. Your Honor. Hale tried to rehabilitate him on redirect, but Daniel was unraveling. He stumbled over dates, contradicted his own affidavit, and finally snapped when Olivia asked about Sienna. This is all her fault. Daniel burst out. She pushed me. She leaked the report. She's the reason we're here. Objection. Hale shouted. Sustained. Judge Ellison said, Mr. Donovan, control yourself. But the damage was done. The room was silent except for Daniel's ragged breathing. Judge Ellison looked at me, then at Olivia. I've heard enough, based on the evidence presented, including the DNA report, the testimony regarding visitation history, and the petitioner's admissions. I am granting the motion, effective immediately. All legal and physical custody is awarded solely to Claire Donovan. Daniel Donovan's parental rights are terminated. Supervised visitation may be requested by motion, but given the circumstances, I strongly caution against it at this time. This court is adjourned. The gavel hit. Daniel slumped forward, head in his hands. Hale was already packing his briefcase, muttering. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and walked out without looking back. In the hallway, Sienna was waiting, phone in hand. She lowered it when she saw me. You happy now? She asked. I'm done, I said, and you should be too, because if you ever mention Emma's name in one of your posts again, I'll own your brand before sunset. Understand? She didn't answer. I didn't wait for one. Outside, the sun was bright. Emma was with my mother, safe and unaware. I texted Olivia. Motion granted. Full custody. Rights terminated. Her reply was instant. Knew you'd nail it. Drinks Friday? I smiled. Deal. The war was over, and I'd won. 6 months later, the calls had stopped. No more late-night voicemails from Daniel slurring apologies. No more tagged photos of Sienna accidentally bumping into reporters outside my office. The internet had moved on. Some tech CEO's embezzlement scandal replaced us on page 6, and Emma's name hadn't been mentioned in a gossip column since Thanksgiving. I got the letter on a Tuesday. Thick ivory envelope. No return address. I knew the handwriting before I slid it open. Daniel. Claire. I've spent the last 6 months trying to understand what happened. Maybe I wasn't the father Emma needed, but I loved her in my own way. I'm sorry for the lies, for the hotels, for Sienna. I'm sorry I let pride ruin everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'd like to see her once. Just once. I'm not fighting you. I just want to say goodbye properly. I read it twice. Then I fed it into the shredder, watching the strips coil into the bin. No reply. No closure. He'd had 6 years to say goodbye properly. He'd chosen Sienna's bed instead. Emma was in the living room, building a Lego castle with my mother. I walked in, and she looked up, grinning. Mommy, look, it's a tower. Beautiful, I said, ruffling her hair. What's the tower for? For princesses and dragons. Nana says we can paint it this weekend. Sounds perfect. My mother caught my eye, nodding toward the kitchen. I followed her. Letter from him. She asked quietly. Yeah. You okay? Better than okay, I said, just tired of carrying his ghosts. She squeezed my shoulder. Then stop carrying them. You've got enough to build without hauling his wreckage. That Saturday was the art show at Emma's school. Not a fundraiser, just a showcase for the kids. Emma's painting was front and center. A swirl of blues and yellows. A house with a crooked chimney. And two stick figures holding hands under a sun that looked suspiciously like a cookie. Parents milled around, chatting. I stayed near the back, letting Emma bask in attention. Lucy's mom came over, smiling cautiously. Emma's painting is lovely. She's doing well? She's thriving, I said. Sleeps through the night. Laughs more. Doesn't ask about Daniel anymore. Good, Lucy's mom said. Relieved. We worried. After everything. I know, but kids are resilient, especially when you stop lying to them. She nodded and drifted off. Olivia appeared at my elbow, holding two plastic cups of terrible punch. To the woman who turned a custody battle into a masterclass, she said, clinking her cup against mine. To the woman who made it look easy, I replied, it wasn't easy, she said, but it was necessary. You see Sienna's latest? I shook my head. Posted a wellness retreat in Costa Rica. 10 photos of her drinking green juice. Captioned, finding my authentic self. Comments are brutal. Someone asked if her authentic self includes leaking court documents. I smirked. Karma's a slow burn, but she's thorough. Emma ran up, tugging my hand. Mommy, come see. Mrs. Patel said I can put a sticker on my painting. I let her pull me toward the front. She pointed at a gold star sticker, proudly affixed near the corner. See, it's a sunshine cookie. Best cookie I've ever seen, I said, kneeling to hug her. On the way home, she was quiet in the back seat. Then, out of nowhere, Mommy, will I ever see Daddy again? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Do you want to? She thought for a long moment. I missed the idea of him, but not the real him. He forgot my recital, and he yelled at you. Then no, I said, not unless it's something you want, and only if it's good for you. Right now, we're enough. Just you and me, and Nana and Papa, and them, and Aunt Olivia, and cookies, she added solemnly. Definitely cookies. She giggled, and the sound filled the car. No echoes. Nos a dos. Just us. That night, I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and turned off the lamp. She was asleep before I reached the door. I stood there for a minute, listening to her breathe. 6 months ago, I'd been bracing for the next attack, the next leak, the next lie. Now, silence. The good kind. My phone buzzed a text from Marcus. Ran a final trace. Daniel's in Portland. New girlfriend. New job. Staying quiet. Sienna's follower count dropped 40%. Thought you'd want to know. I typed back, thanks. Burn the file. Then I set the phone on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of wine. Through the window, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold. I thought about the gala, the mediation room, the courtroom. The weight I'd carried for so long felt lighter now. Not gone. Some scars don't vanish, but manageable. Mine. Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about dragons. I smiled, sipped my wine, and walked to the living room. On the mantel, next to her school photo, sat a single frame, the DNA report, folded neatly, tucked behind a card she'd made me that said World's Best Mom. I didn't need the report anymore, but I kept it there as a reminder. Not of Daniel's lie, of my own strength, of the day I stopped managing someone else's mess and started building a life that was truly ours. The wine was dry, the house was quiet, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. It already had, and I'd landed on my feet. Epilogue. 6 months later, again. Olivia and I were at a rooftop bar, celebrating her promotion to partner. She raised her glass to Claire Donovan, Who took a dumpster fire and turned it into a fortress? To Emma, I said, who taught me that enough isn't a compromise. It's a victory. Below us, the city hummed. Somewhere, Daniel was probably explaining his authentic self to another woman. Sienna was likely posting about her healing journey. I didn't care. Their stories weren't mine anymore. My phone buzzed a photo from my mother, Emma, covered in flour, grinning at a lopsided pancake stack. Caption, future chef. I saved it, then silenced the phone. Olivia nudged me. You're not thinking about him, are you? Him? I sipped my drink. No, I'm thinking about pancakes. And how? For the first time, I'm the one holding the spatula. She laughed. Atta girl. We clinked glasses, and the skyline blurred into gold. The past was a closed chapter. The future? It tasted like batter and sunlight, and it was entirely mine.